Penguin Random House Audio presents Black Mountain by Laird Barron. Read for you by William Demeritt. A little bird lit down on Henry Lee. Henry Lee, P.J. Harvey, Nick Cave, and the Bad Seeds. Stranger, I wear no mask. Camilla, no mask? No mask. The King in Yellow, Robert W. Chambers. The nightmare life in death was she, who thicks man's blood with cold. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. For Jessica M. Part 1. A Little Bird Lit Down. Chapter 1. One lonesome winter many years ago, I went hunting in the mountains with Gene Kavanaugh, a Grand Master Hitman Emeritus. Sinister constellations blazed above our camp on the edge of a plateau scaled with ice. The stars are always cold and jagged as smashed glass in the winter in Alaska. Thin air seared my lungs if I inhaled too deeply. Nearby, a herd of caribou rested under the mist of its collected breath. We weren't there for them. Gene alternated between drinking from the neck of a bottle and playing bars on the harmonica he carried on a leather string around his neck. The tuneless tune was halting and eerie as the one Charles Bronson made famous in Once Upon a Time in the West. God lit a candle and then made us. He was afraid of being alone in the dark. Gene tossed aside the empty whiskey bottle and lurched upright. He swayed one boot in the embers of the fire and spread his arms to embrace the dreadful starfield. What big teeth, oh my terrible soul. That's my reflection out there, blown up God-sized. And look, there's yours, Isaiah, the Death's Head Nebula and its nephew. A man doesn't apprehend heaven in his gaze, he beholds a chasm. For he gazes not upward, but downward, deep into a cold black rift, strung along its jaws with tiny dying lights. The old man didn't rant when he drank. He only became louder and waxed ebullient. My participation wasn't required. I preoccupied myself with cleaning and reloading my .308 Winchester. The rifle was fairly new to me, acquired from a private dealer in Anchorage. I hadn't shot anyone with it yet. His canvas pant leg caught fire, a single licking red flame. He glanced down, and his eyes trapped the flame and glowed red as twin portals into hell. He snickered, unzipped, and urinated on his pant leg and the ashes, until steam rose and clouded his silhouette. Disquieted, I uncapped the lens cover on my rifle and peered through the scope, panning west across wind-blown swale. I could have read a book by the cascading illumination of the stars. Eventually, I spotted the faint glow of a gasoline lantern. The light emanated from a neighboring camp tucked into the base of the Drumlin Ridge. Distance blurred the details. Even so, there would be 3 men huddled around a portable stove, caribou hunters a long, long way from civilization. Earlier that week, Gene and I shared a few drinks with the party of caribou hunters at the roadhouse. I didn't memorize their names, only the essentials. 2 were Chicago boys, bluff and hearty types who held their liquor, yet were soft as city people often are. Expensive outdoor gear, decent haircuts, subtle cologne. One was a lefty who wore thick glasses that would surely steam over as he exhaled in the cold. The other's nose and ears were flat, a boxer's telltale badges of pugnacious courage. He breathed through his mouth, and it was evident he'd long passed his prime. Both swilled beer and puffed on stogies. They identified themselves as construction workers with vacation days to burn. No better place than Alaska. Might have been a cover story, or maybe they were on the level. Gene hadn't divulged the contents of the contract dossier. It didn't matter what occupation the pair listed on their W-2s, because it was a fact. The boys were affiliated with the outfit. 2 lost lambs who'd gotten on the wrong side of somebody powerful and didn't even know it. The third individual dressed and acted like a last frontier version of the Marlboro Man. He operated as a local guide for greenhorn tourists. Zero connection to the secret lives of his clients. Hard luck for him. Another sad but true fact. Every day people disappear without a trace in the Alaska wilderness. Nature cares not a fig for innocence or fairness. Now darkness and cold gathered around us. Civilized lands and the warmth of the roadhouse might as well have existed on another planet. By setting foot in this primeval vale, we detached ourselves from human laws and customs. The meat grinder that is fate growled into motion. Gene had a keen nose. He scented my worry. "Relax, killer," he said. "We'll dust him in the morning. I need some shut-eye." A storm roared out of the far north and settled over the valley. Dawn brought screaming winds and drifted snow. We were buried in our tent for 48 hours. Visibility reduced to mere yards. When the weather broke, the other party had vanished. Gene and I strapped on snowshoes and backtracked to the roadhouse. Bastard of a slog. I slumped at the bar, rubbing my numb hands together while he phoned Anchorage with the bad news. I recall sipping bitter black coffee and how sweet it tasted. A monstrous black wolf's head snarled at me from its mount over the bar. The wolf disdained my temporary escape from the clutches of the wild. It whispered, next time, two-legged bitch. Next time will be different." Almost spoiled my wonderful coffee. My mother believed in the Maori death god, Wero, a god of darkness not dissimilar to the horned and fanged iterations of Satan. I have long held that if Wero or something like Wero exists, he's the lord of the wilderness. A genius loci, fast and immovable as a mountain. His malignance imbues the feral beasts, the trees, and the creeping ice. His evil voice is the wind crying among branches that begs men to step off the path and wander to their destruction. I felt Wero's gaze through the dead eyes of the wolf's head. Gene returned and ordered a shot of bourbon. "Good thing we lost those guys in the whiteout." He gulped his booze. "Get a load of this. The bosses changed their fucking minds. It's off. Believe that? Off. Don't worry none. We'll still get paid our commission. You get the commission if they call it. We always get paid. Plug that into your memory banks." The Chicago duo and their guide straggled in the near sunset, wind-burned and shaken, but very much alive. Those guys were overjoyed to have survived their ordeal. They bought rounds for the bar and paid our dinner tab. We parted ways with mutual backslapping and jocular fare-thee-wells. "Damn, life's a kick, ain't it?" Gene said as he drove home along the slippery highway. "I'm sure those humps recognized me. Guy in the glasses is sharper than he lets on. When we parted at the door, we had us a moment. I saw the fear in his eyes." The truck shifted queasily as the highway descended in a series of switchbacks. Nothing except a gulf of treetops and mist on the passenger side. Yeah, he knew. He knew he'd shaken hands with the Reaper. I asked if that presented a problem. "Problem? No problem. What do I care? He'll have a story to tell his buddies in Chi-Town. He gave Mr. Death the slip. None of them will believe him." Gene's smirk softened and became inscrutable. "Besides, this road is a terminal accident waiting to happen if your brakes aren't 100%. He shimmied the wheel to emphasize his point, and the truck fishtailed lazily before he got it under control by tapping first the accelerator, then the brakes. Man, I hope that wasn't a puddle of brake fluid I saw under their car. That would be terrible. The truck swayed and I white-knuckled my armrest. "You were over getting drinks, and they told me a story about their last hunt," Gene said. His expression had flattened into a naked skull. I'd never seen him like that before. A bummer, according to our Chicago pals. They hiked into the woods for nothing, couldn't find a sign of moose or any other big game. They got bored, you see.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?